This is Inside the Game, where passion meets precision. Jonathan Turner, Nathan Wangler, and John Natale are your hosts, breaking down every goal, every controversy, every match that matters. From the heart of American soccer to the global stage. No fluff, just football. Weekdays at 9 a.m. live on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all listening platforms.
Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner, Nathan Wangler, and John Natale.
We still got to come up with a new intro at some point.
I know. We put it in the can. It's in the can.
We're working on it. We'll get there, but you guys get the point. Welcome back in Inside the Game, the podcast. Nate Wangler alongside John Natale, episode 103 here on Inside the Game. Had a really good conversation yesterday about a bunch of different stuff. But, I will say this. It is nice as we continue to move along. And really, when we got to 100 episodes, and I was telling you about at least this component of it, and I know in terms of the marketing side, maybe you're not nearly as involved, but you still see our stuff on social. You're still very much involved in everything as it comes to that. And I'll be the first to tell you our live streams on the National Soccer Network is really where the viewership comes in. And this was something that was, actually told to me, as we came into this week. But I mean, that's a look at our numbers from this last weekend. Or last week rather. That's really impressive. 539 new subscribers, over 650,000 impressions, but nearly 100 games broadcasted. And I know we're kind of not winding our way towards the end of the busy season, but there is a portion of the soccer season where there's just so much going on at the same exact time. But it's not just the live streams that's drawing a lot of attention. A lot of it is our social media stuff. And people are kind of gravitating towards these conversations about just how do we fix American soccer. And I think that is everybody that is top of mind. And I think it's important to acknowledge, and we always try to work this in on these shows, we might sound overly critical. We might get into people a lot, the national team, youth coaches, youth parents. We might be pretty passionate about this, but the reason being is because if there's one sport in the U.S. that I could say is the most confusing in terms of pathways, it is soccer in the United States. And that's what we're going to talk about here today, because it seems like in the other sports in this country that there is a clear path from the bottom up. In the sport of soccer, it's not even nearly the same. It is very, very much all over the place. And because of that, it creates mass confusion and people don't know really where they lie. Are you good enough? Are you not good enough? Someone's going to tell you you're good enough if the price point is correct. And therein lies the problem in what we have here, at least in the game of soccer in the United States. But anyways, we'll get to that here in a moment. Thank you, everybody, for joining here on Inside the Game, whether you're viewing on Roku, YouTube, or anywhere else. Here this morning, John, I know we talked about yesterday who is the goated singer of all time, who is the greatest of all time, but we got another subject to start off this one here today. And not to say that I'm impartial one way or the other, but I do believe one might have an advantage over the other, but I do have a problem with both of them, and we'll get into that. But our open here today, or at least our question to begin the show, Nike or Adidas? And John Natale seems like he is pretty passionate, at least one direction or the other, as he sits up in his chair, and it shows Adidas and mine shows Nike. So perfect. It seems like we're off to a hot start here. John, what is it about Adidas that makes it so much better than the other guys?
I just think because Adidas, for the sport, for what they do, it's just more natural to me. Sure. It just seems that Nike, I can't take any away from Nike. They clearly, Air, honestly, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, one of the best movies I've ever watched. It was really good. Jordan story. But I look at how hard they push, and I also look how plain a lot of their stuff is. What happens with Nike? Let's take the NCAA Final Four, right? And they have, in the tournament, they have this one slogan. So what they do is they just reprint every shirt and then just throw the logo of the next team on it. Doesn't change the slogan. The swoosh is on the chest, but then it's just it could be a Kentucky Wildcat, could be a Kansas Jayhawk, UNC Tar Heel, something. That's all they do, and change the color. So, and then you look at some of their shoes, and like, who was in the boardroom for this one? I mean, when we did the original Air Jordans back in '84, it was black, red, and white. Now we have teal and sea green and otter brown.
I like the Carolina Blues though; those are cool. I like the Carolina Blues though; those are cool.
Yeah, but it's like Carolina blue and white.
Yeah,
they come out some wacky spaceship shoes that are crazy. But Adidas, it seems like a homegrown thing that fell into soccer naturally,
right?
And Adidas has its, I guess, a fair share in Division I football. Not great, but there's a few schools that utilize it. Nike is the horse by far, but Adidas, they were the NBA for a while. They cut ties there because they kind of know where they are. They know their soccer. They try to dive into other things, just like Under Armour. They try to dive in it, but Under Armour is pretty much, I don't even know what Under Armour is, to be honest with you. But Adidas and the way that we follow soccer and the way that I appreciate soccer and everything, and just their clothes, it's more, I can go out casually and wear a lot of Adidas things, and I don't think I can really do that with Nike for some odd reason.
So when I was in high school, we were an Under Armour school, and to their credit, I mean, they were able to get a lot of good stuff from Under Armour. So it was one of those things where they were like, you better wear only Under Armour. Like, we would legitimately get in trouble if we were like cross branding. And this was in high school. Like, sorry, I don't really have my pick of the litter with a lot of this stuff. I'm just kind of rolling with whatever it is that I have. Again, fortunately, got enough of that stuff. So Under Armour is good. Is it to the level that Nike and Adidas are? Probably not. I would probably say no, but here's my thing. And I do agree. And it's interesting you mentioned Adidas in the football space. It reminds me of a very dark time in my fandom, because obviously I'm a University of Michigan fan. When they were an Adidas school, that was the Rich Rod era. And I believe exactly right after him, which was the Hoke era, which, again, both of them, outside of one bowl game for Hoke, was terrible. No wins over Ohio State ever. And so that was just a bad, but even those jerseys, they were kind of awkward looking. They tried to rebrand it and redesign it, but I just don't think Adidas, it just didn't feel natural in the football space. For whatever reason, it didn't feel that way. So obviously Michigan's gone to Jordan Brand now. And I will say, at least in terms of the fashion side of things, right? If there's ever such a thing as like casual, but also fashionable, I think Nike has done that well, because nowadays Jordans are like actually kind of considered not high fashion, but like you can work them in with decent outfits and no one would blink an eye at it. But am I going to get a Nike shoe for running? No. If you have any sort of arch problems, if you have
Ultra Boost,
feet, yes, like it's not going to happen. And that's been my issue with Nike and it's like $1 million. So I'm paying $1 million for a shoe that I know is just going to mess me up in the long run. So if you have any structural issues with your feet whatsoever in terms of curves, arches, don't do Nike. But here's my issue that I have with both of them. So I'll give the edge to Adidas on this one. What I do think is that Nike does make some good, like jackets. And like I said, this one, like the bigger stuff, I think Nike does a good job at. The only reason why I say is because when we were MSN, before we transitioned to NSN, all of our brand and all of our apparel, by the way, you can still find that on the National Soccer Network website if you want something like this. We got a bunch of different stuff, T-shirts, jerseys, you got a bunch of different things, coffee mugs as well, so you can invest in that if you're watching our show every morning. But we used to be Nike everything when we were MSN. And so, to JT's credit, got me some good stuff. And so this is great. My only issue is this. The dry fit stuff, not a fan. Okay. We're all about body positivity on Inside the Game, and none of that None of that looks good. Also, your t-shirts shrink way too fast. So if I'm going to drop $1 billion on a t-shirt, I would like it to not shrink right away. Now, that also might be a product of me growing at the same time, but nonetheless, I feel like I can go get, discount t-shirts at the store, and yet somehow those things will be more comfortable and longer lasting than anything that I'm going to get in terms of Nike and Adidas. So I think there's good and bad to both of them. But in terms of the soccer space, yeah, I'll give it to you, because Adidas just seemed awkward in the football space, at least from what I saw.
You talk about awkward, though, is the biggest pet peeve of mine, man. And so right now you can see the hoodie. I can tell you I have Adidas shorts on and Adidas shoes on right now.
You don't have the Skechers?
No, I don't have the Joe Montana wear these.
Yeah.
The rockers, remember those?
Uh-huh.
Keep you straight up.
Uh-huh.
But when people combine them, if I see an Adidas shirt and Nike shoes or vice versa, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And then there are those dastardly people who actually give me the triple dip that'll wear an Adidas shirt, Nike shoes, and Under Armour shorts. And I have to retreat.
Ooh.
I have to go to a silent space and curl up in a corner. But I just didn't see that.
You can't trust those people. There's no loyalty.
You cannot. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Those are the people that are out to get you, because they just don't give a hoot. They'll do anything, especially that nonsense. But I just want to know, if there's comment section or anybody's watching this, what do you think? Is it sacrilegious to combine in an outfit both Nike and Adidas, or is it like, who cares? It's just what I have. I'm gonna wear it.
Our very own, our own company that we are podcasting on right now says Nike. So
yeah,
I think
because it's paid to say
you.
that.
I said they did. It's comfortable stuff, man. I will say.
And I went to see. I know that was going to happen because about a week ago, I asked, like, hey, can I have a file of our logo for what? Well, I'd like to get some Adidas photos. Can't do it. Why? Can't do it. We're all Nike. We're Nike, and that's it.
Nike.
You're gone if you put something NSN on Adidas. USOB.
Yep.
I got ripped.
Yep. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep. So
all right.
Anyways, all right. Well, hey, I mean, perfect opportunity to get us more stuff to show off on the show. So that's all I'm saying. So
well, I mean, inside the game, I don't think there's anything in the clause that say can't get Adidas polo with that on it. Can I? I'll find a way. I will find a way.
You are so brand loyalty is your thing, John.
It is. Notice every soccer
it.
jersey I wear is Adidas.
That's fair.
And thank God. Italy is Adidas. Juventus is Adidas. Man U is Adidas. Darn right.
What's the United States men's national team? What are they?
Nike.
They are Nike? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that explains
now,
a lot.
There is a caveat. There is a caveat with hats, because Nike makes more sports teams hats than Adidas does. However, where is it? Okay, where is it? There it is.
Oh,
New Era is neutral.
Okay.
They're neutral because they do everything. They got MLB caps, even though MLB is Nike. They do MLB caps. They do all the NBA caps, all the NFL caps. So New Era, that's okay. If you're concerned like me about what you're going to wear on a daily basis, you need a good ball cap. New Era, Buffalo, New York.
You don't want to be reprimanded for what you're wearing around.
No.
Oh, good stuff. So you guys tell us, what are you feeling, Nike or Under Armour? It's very clear that we are a Nike Adidas company.
You forgot Adidas. You said Nike and Under. You just cut it out completely.
Under Armour.
Nike or Under Armour.
Adidas is in the conversation. All right, there's our top three. Well, New Era kind of, again, they're Switzerland. They kind of
New Era. They're neutral. They're like Lego, man. They'll take on everything.
One way or the other. So getting into what we want to talk about here today.
Yeah, let's get into this.
It's a common topic that we discuss a lot. And what's fascinating to me, and I've said this, I've been very upfront about it, and only because I don't like to pretend that I know more about things that I don't. And I know that that's really hard, specifically when you talk about media members, because we have to be able to blend into different environments in order to succeed. Like there's a reason why, when ESPN's like, you know what, we're going to have Stephen A. Smith do MMA matches. Do you think Stephen A. Smith knows anything about MMA? No, absolutely not. But what he is he's a good entertainer, right? And so, people love seeing him freak out. He brings in ratings. So they're like, let's just try and plug and place him anywhere we can put him. And a lot of times as members of the media, we don't have opportunities to just pick and choose what we want. Okay, like if I wanted to, my ultimate preference would be, well, I'm just going to do basketball, baseball, and football for the rest of my life. I'm going to do it at a high level. I'm just going to talk about that. That's great. But sometimes you have to make yourself available to different things. And for me, the way that my journey has gone, at least recently, has been dedicating myself to, again, being available, to being open to doing different things. And the soccer atmosphere made itself available to me. Thanks to JT, thanks to everybody else. But in learning about it, I feel like even through 100+ episodes on this show, it's almost created more confusion as I've gone than the other way around. Like, it has become more confusing, not the game itself. I understand the game, and I'm getting better at terminology and everything else when it comes to the actual game itself. Because I'll admit, I never played at a high level. I didn't play in high school. I didn't play anywhere else. I mean, I played Little Tykes. I don't know if that really counts for anything. But I'm learning more about the physical game itself. But everything that's around the game, specifically here in the United States, has just simply become more confusing as we've gone, which is mind-boggling to me, because you figure if you take more time, if you learn more stuff, that it would have become more clear what everything looks like. But it all comes down to the simple fact, John Natali, and we talk about this a lot, there is no one pathway in American soccer. There is no one uniformed league. There is no one uniformed umbrella from the top down to the bottom. You can very clearly see what level you're at based on where you're at in that pyramid, because you have this pyramid, but you also have this league. And we talk about the, USL and MLS. It's very much, head to head, and the USL is trying to put pressure on the MLS, this, that, and the other thing. Our question of the day today here on Inside the Game: is soccer oversaturated in the United States? I think that's a pretty easy yes or no question. Where it gets difficult is when you start diving into exactly what that looks like and what we mean by oversaturated. So this was something that you had actually brought up yesterday. What's the problem with there being as much soccer as there is in the U.S.? Because I do think it creates just this sense of mass confusion.
So where does a player go? That is the ultimate over-end question. You look at every other sport out there. You look at football. There's one place that you go to get recognized in football, and that's Division I. That's where you want to go. If you're aspiring to be a super athlete on a football field, regardless of the position, your goal is to get to the best place possible, and that is a Division I school. Now, yes, there are exceptions. There are going to be exceptions to everything, but you're less likely to get looked at a D3 school. Look at Mount Union in Ohio, them in Whitewater, Wisconsin. They go back and forth winning football championships every single year. But how many NFL players are from those schools? Next to none. I don't even know if there's anybody in the league right now from there. Mm-hmm. And you look at baseball, Nate, you're closer to this, and I'm a baseball guy myself. There's a pathway. It's D1. That's the first step. And then when you get drafted, if you get to that point, you have 3 places to go. 3. A, AA, AAA. Now, yes, there's low A and high A, but those guys, if they're jockeying back and forth between those two, they're not going to make it to the next level.
Right.
But you know that path. The NBA, it's D1 a year, probably. If you're that good, you're only going to be there a year because you have to now. And then the NBA. The G League, that's more, to me, it's more of a demotion than it is I'm an unrestricted free agent. I'm going to go play in the G League. So few players come out of the G League to become superstars in the NBA.
Yeah.
And hockey is the same way. But then you look at the international stage of everything, and like with soccer, you have, where else is there a pyramid? That's what I want to know. It's like MLS, and then beneath it, USL Championship, USL Super League. Underneath that, USL 2, USL 1 champion. I mean, it's why do you have 6 or 7 teams in one line? It should be bam, bam, bam. And then these soccer players, when they come out, is it the MLS that they want to go to? No. Where do they want to play? Where do top soccer players want to play? Do they want to play for a Major League Soccer club?
Not here.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They want to play overseas. That's their goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to say, yeah, I'm at the highest level of soccer in the United States, but I'm not where I want to be. Every single player on an MLS pitch that is good is trying to get overseas, trying desperately.
Yep.
And we talk about Messi a lot and the impact he's had. Think about how he dominates at 37 years old, how he dominates MLS. He dominates it by far. There's no one even close to his skill set in MLS. And he was on the downside of his career across his pond for Inter.
Yeah.
That guy that we're watching now was on the downturn of his professional career. So what does that say about the state of what we're in? Nobody, they, as you made it clear, they don't know how to navigate through it. And second, at the top, they don't want to be there. So that brings to a point of where we're talking about the U.S. men's national team. God bless their hearts. Do we really have the 26, 27 best players in the United States on that team? Do we really?
Yeah.
Are we looking in the right spots? Because that's the thing. U.S. soccer, they don't even know where to look. Everybody on this team right now is MLS or they have some international experience. There's no other player from like USL Championship or USL 2. How do you find, with as much soccer as there, how do you find these people?
Right.
And maybe they don't have the resources to get noticed because they are on a UPSL team where they had to pay money to play. Unlike basketball, where if you're good enough, you're going to get found. If you play baseball, if you're good enough, you're going to get found. You were mentioning yesterday about the NFL and how players are starting to gravitate from Canada. Why? Because they're good enough and they're going to get found. Nobody knows where to look for soccer because it's everywhere. Are you going to go to an MLS match to scout, or are you going to go to an APSL match in Delaware to scout? It's clear as day.
And if you play high school, you're not even in the conversation. Yeah. And that was something that I remember on earlier episodes when I was told about that. No one really invests in high school soccer. No one really looks in terms of scouting at high school soccer. Now, there are exceptions. There are players that, maybe play both. They play a little bit of club. They train here. They play in high school. That's fine. But to the players who are strictly only at the high school, they're not going to get noticed. And it was funny because the response to that was, well, typically, you don't have the best coaching. You'll just have someone's parent there. Yeah, as with all the other sports in the United States in high school. What you expect them to pay a coach $100,000?
Well, that I disagree with, because if you saw some of the salaries, some of these basketball coaches
here
in the Hoosier State,
that's fair. There are exceptions.
I look at that and I go, I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah, there are exceptions to the rule.
Whip out the checkbook and just make it out to cash for these coaches. Holy Christ.
You should see some of the football coaches over on the east side
in Texas and Florida and Ohio.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Yeah. The big two. Baseball is very similar to soccer as far as that's concerned. Some guys have done it for a long time and are very good at it. Right. But then there's others. Hey, I'm the assistant athletic director. I'm also the third period math teacher. I'm the photography teacher. You have to drag people in because the high school environment is just terrible. It's ruthless.
And so there is that's what I was talking about, like this level of confusion. And then you have the USL that's like, okay, well, we're going to implement the new highest level, right? The USL Championship. or Division One. I can't remember what the
Yeah,
terminology is.
but that's what it
Anyways,
is. It's a step down from
right.
the USL Championship. We're like, we're gonna add another one.
Right. But are you competing with the MLS? Are you going to upend the MLS because you're adding this new league? And we'll get into the pro rel talk here in a second, because I do think it's interesting, because anytime we ask this question to the general public, John Natali, it is the same answer from everyone in the conversation. What do we have to do to fix American soccer? I know what it is. We need pro rel, because that's what they're doing everywhere else in the world. So we need to do it. Okay? Easier said than done. We could talk about the logistics of that. But my problem is that we have money, we have resources. I always refer to that rant from Alexi Lalas, what was 7 years ago now. I mean, it just seems like so long, but he was ripping into guys like Tim Howard and talking about, Christian Pulisic, who was Wonder Boy. I mean, he was brand new to the international scene, but he really picked that team apart. But it is a rant that lives on, because he talked about how we are a soccer generation now that has been given everything in the United States, and yet on the international level, at least from what we've seen lately, and who knows what goes on tomorrow against Saudi Arabia, hopefully we continue to move in the right direction. But this is something that, we do have all of the resources that are necessary, but because they are stretched so thin, and because the wealthy people that run these leagues are not willing to come together to create one uniformed system from the top down to the bottom in the United States, we will never see exactly, at least concretely, who the best of the best are. And it's two-sided, right? The first part is you have to lift some of these restrictions on MLS owners. I thought Alexi Lalas was really onto something there, because I think that's important. If you want to be able to bring in the best of the best, get rid of some of the restrictions when it comes to the owners. Let them sign whoever they want to sign. Let them bring over whoever they want to bring over, right? We are a country that in terms of resources is not lacking. There's a reason why these top-end athletes want to come to the United States. Now, in the soccer game, obviously it's at the end of their career, right? Because they want to be comfortable. They want to live in the country. I get that. But the conversation is always, how do we get them earlier in their career? Well, it's going to take a bunch of very wealthy people coming together, putting their pride and their ego aside, putting their heads together, and coming up with one uniform system. But here's the problem, Natali. When you just say, well, they do it over there, so we should do it right here. Again, wishful thinking, number one, but it just doesn't seem possible, at least from my perspective, that that's something that can happen because of the amount of money and ego that is in the game in the United States. And again, there is diversity of thought. I think it's important that we recognize that, right? It's one thing if you talk about Argentina and Spain and Germany. They all have different schools of thought as to not only how the game should be structured, but how it should be played. And that's why when you see these teams, they have an identity. They all have an identity. They all have a certain way of playing. Spain is very possession-based. Germany is very aggressive. They're very much over the top and attack you with deep balls. They all have different things that they do really well. Here in the United States, there's this constant pull, this constant tug as to what direction we're going to go. Do you even think it's possible that we can create a system like that? Because frankly, I just don't see it happening unless we do the one thing that a lot of different players have said, which is just tear the entire thing down and start over again.
Something that I don't think we talk about enough, especially here stateside, when we talk about the international game and let's talk nations. You just mentioned Germany and Spain, Italy, France, England, Brazil, South America, Argentina. These countries are so small. I mean, they're the size of states. Texas is bigger than every single one of those states, right, or those countries. But one thing we never talk about, Nate, is when you think of Serie A, when you think of Premier League, when you think Bundesliga, all these different leagues that are out there. Notice we never talk about what goes on underneath those leagues. It's that, and then their national team. We can talk about Serie A. Inter Milan, AC Milan, Juventus, Roma, and then the Italian national team. And that's it. That's all we talk about. Here, it's okay, D1, APSL, NWSL, USL2, USLW, UWL, MPSL, WPSL, League for Clubs, USL2. It's just this constant revolving door of everything we talk about. And you can see it on social media now that the Club Cup is here, because now they're watching it and they're seeing how just much soccer there is. And you think that there's a big hootenanny going on. Oh boy, I just sound like I was 90 years old. Hootenanny? Hootenanny is what I used.
Wow. I can see you digging into the bag.
Yeah, holy my goodness.
Hootenanny we went with. All right.
Let me tell you a story, kids. Way back when. God. Anywho, but we only talk about the quality of soccer overseas. That's maybe the reason, Nate, that they don't gravitate towards football, that they don't gravitate towards baseball or basketball. Basketball might be a little different. I think of all the world sports, basketball has probably grown the most as far as American sports are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And I know baseball's up there, but baseball's not even as saturated worldwide because it's mostly world teams. Yes, they have their respective leagues and everything, but when it comes to the world stage, we're still not the best at that. It's America's pastime, and we're not the best at that. We talked about it yesterday. NFL, it doesn't matter what kind of international team you could put together from every country outside the United States, they would never compete with our NFL team. I'm not even saying the best. If you put the best 22 on a field for the NFL, the absolute best, you know what that score would be if you took the best football players in the world outside of the United States against the 22 best NFL players? What do you think that score would be?
A lot to a little.
It would be triple digits, wouldn't it? It would be triple digits.
Yep.
I guarantee in 60 minutes of football, it'd be triple digits. Now, say that about soccer. If you took the 11 best players internationally and put them, and I'm not even talking about a national, I'm talking all international players. If you put them against the 11 best of the United States, what would happen? God forbid. It would be double digits.
It would be
Easy.
it would be like taps, like when they play that at funerals.
It would be taps. It would be Amazing Grace playing at the same time.
Bagpipes.
Every bagpipes. Everybody be wearing black. It would be a funeral right before it even got to it. You'd see caskets laying on the side. It would be insane.
Yep.
But you just don't see other sports getting as much focus for a sport they don't care about. The NFL, well, they sell out when the NFL comes. The NFL goes there 7 times a year and in 7 different cities. They don't go to the same city. So it's a novelty for them. How many baseball tournaments are held in England from the United States? None.
Yeah.
And basketball, they play themselves, but we talked about it yesterday, going back to the international thing. If you took 10 of the best international players and put them against the 10 best American players, that'd be a tight game, boy. It'd be a tight game. It'd be a good game. But with the U.S. men's national team finding an identity, why do we not? What is the one thing the United States has over everybody? Everybody, you've said it 100 times. Training, resources, all this kind of stuff. Why do we not just become the fastest GD team in the entire world? Because we probably are. Our skill level is they're not skilled enough. That's why Spain can play the way they do. That's why Germany can play the way they do, because they're skilled that way. We don't have that skill, but we can outrun them, send the ball forward, get some speedsters out there. We have enough Usain Bolts in America to do that. Yes, he's won, but we probably have, gosh, take some sprinters. Just put a ball at their feet. Because we'll never, ever be able to play a possession game of soccer with anybody in the world. Can we outrun them, though? 100%.
Yep.
Do you believe that?
And that was something that I believe your good friend Jamie Gilbert actually said when we had him on the show. I think he even said that too. He's like, the why do we play a possession-based game? Why is that the focus when we talk about America and the athletes we can produce? And I firmly believe that these are all great athletes. Are they individually skilled? No, but we have some of the best in terms of just sheer athleticism. Why don't you lean into that? That was something that he said. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And even the ragtag groups from the earlier days, we can go back to 94, sure, but you can even talk about the early 2000s. Were they athletically, did they stack up to the other teams they were playing? No, absolutely not. Were they as organized? Did they have as much of an identity? No. The deepest the United States has ever gone in the World Cup is making a semifinal. That was back in the 50s. But even that team was looked at as the biggest ragtag bunch of who's that has ever played ever. But yet they were able to get it done. Now, I'm sure the game's probably changed a lot since the 50s. I will admit that. It's been, obviously over 70 years. But those, if you have, it's almost kind of better in that way to just be not unorganized, but to have a group of guys who just want to go forward, be aggressive, and just go out and ball and play.
Why not? Why not?
Versus the other side, which is we're going to try to be holier than thou. We're going to try to get, someone who's been really good in the international game and he's from the Argentinian school, and we're going to try and outsmart everybody. You can't. And that's the fundamental issue that we run into, is that we are different than the rest of the world. And that's okay to admit. I think people are afraid to admit that. Like, they want to be like, oh, we can just be like everybody else. We should be like everybody else because it's not our sport. Well, it's not really our sport. So that's the
never been our sport. It's never been our sport.
So that's the importance of leaning into, well, what can we do to maybe get ourselves over the hump, or at the very least. And like I said yesterday, we don't have to win the World Cup. Just give ourselves a fighting chance. That's at the end of the day. That's kind of what the focus is. Or at least just trying to get these guys to that point. So I do think it's a really fascinating subject. I do want to dive into our mailbag here in a little bit, because I do think we got a lot of really good comments. And, the truth is, in talking about specifically the pro-rel conversation, because we know that the USL is starting to implement that, and that's the direction that they're going now. And all credit in the world to them, because they're trying to do something that, again, is different. It's not in the United States. It's not a part of the conversation here. And you even look at the other leagues. And before we get to that, I just have a general question. And I don't know if you can answer this. And at least from what I've talked about in previous episodes, it seems like this is a foreign concept to a lot of people. And maybe it's just because they don't know, because they're not involved in the other sports on a professional scale. Obviously, I am in baseball, so I see what that's like. But with the amount of money and resources that the MLS has, with the amount of access to simply just deep pocketbooks that these owners have, why can we not create a system that resembles that of something like you see in baseball? Because I think those are two very similar sports. I don't know if people want to look at it that way, but let's think about it, right? The travel leagues and the clubs and whatever, they don't really call them clubs in baseball, but you get the point, have really taken over at the youth level. And Little League in a lot of ways has gone away. High school ball is cool. Are you really going after guys who are playing on their high school teams, or are you going after the guys that play in showcases? Yeah, a lot of times you're focusing
on. There's a lot of high school kids that get drafted.
That is true. That is true. That is fair. But they're playing in a lot of those other leagues too, and they're training in the summer.
But they don't say they're drafted from so and so club. They're drafted from St. Thomas high school and all that kind of stuff.
So that is a key difference. I will admit that. But in terms of all the other different things, because there are, again, baseball is one of those things. I'll even say this. Baseball is saturated. We have the Northwoods League. We have the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League. We have the
Frontier.
Midwest League. We have the Frontier League. We have the Cape
Pioneer.
Cod League, Pioneer League. We have independent leagues all over the place. We have all over the place. But here's the thing, right? You have these independent leagues, but when it comes to professional baseball, where you are paid to play, there is a system. You get drafted by the major league team. You probably start off, I don't know, in the Florida Complex League, Arizona Complex League, whatever, low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then the major leagues. You have to earn your way there, right? And there is a tier, there is a system, there is a top to bottom. You know where you are in this. Why can we not create something similar in the MLS to where it's like, okay, MLS, you draft somebody. If you think they're ready to play at the highest level, that's fine. Plug them in. But let's make it to where, okay, maybe, I don't know, like 20 rounds baseball. I don't know what that would look like, but you draft these kids and you're like, all right, well, this kid's maybe not ready. So you have MLS, next pro, and then maybe you have that third league. Okay, so you start them off there and then see if they're able to work their way up. Why can we not create a tiered system like this? Again, I think it comes back to the money, and there were some really good comments in here, and again, I'll drop them in here pretty shortly, but that's the side to me is like, and I know that it would take, again, a lot of people who are maybe willing to sacrifice a little bit of the money side, which, again, is not something that happens a whole lot. Why can we not create something like that in the soccer space?
Because there's too much competition. Because for one, you say, well, the owners of the MLS, could they do this? They very well could. But the owners of USL Championship are still trying to compete with the MLS. Who's trying to compete with Major League Baseball or the NBA or NFL? Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. They play, but they know, like, we can set up shop and play somewhere, but we're not touching that animal.
Right.
But that's what it is. USL Championship thinks they can compete with the MLS. And then with this new USL 1 league that's coming out, who are they trying to compete with? They're within their own system. They're trying to compete with each other.
Yep.
AAA doesn't interfere with AA. That's your promotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's like going from customer service rep to manager of customer service. And then from single A or AA to AAA is manager of services to director. And then you're VP, man. You're sitting on the board. It's just like any business. That's what they run. That's what Major League Baseball runs. They run a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll find the occasional scallywag that's, am I a pirate? What is with me today? God, these words. I'm catching myself. Arr, me bucko. Let me tell you a story of the seas.
Right.
God. Scallywag.
I love it.
Hootenanny and Scallywag in one freaking episode. My God, mark this down. 103.
Yeah, I need to use these on a broadcast one of these times.
But you get it, right? Like, Major League Baseball is built like a corporation. You have to start out at the bottom ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to work your way up. There is no U.S. soccer, unfortunately, has convinced everybody, all the players, all the fans watching, that pyramid is where you go. Okay, well, if you have 5 teams on the bottom tier or leagues, are you going from here to here to here to here, then to here, to this one, to this one? Or is it here, 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 here? It makes no sense. What other league has a pyramid? It goes straight up. It should be vertical. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. So getting into some of the comments that we had on our social media, and again, a lot of them surround this conversation here for the final 15 of the show. And we appreciate all you guys that jump on our socials and let us know what you're thinking. I think it's really important. One thing that's fascinating, I will say, I get more comments on these videos that I post than likes. And I love it. I love it because it means that people are talking and it means that people are getting involved in the conversation. So clearly there's a lot of interest in fixing American soccer. And again, this goes back to the point that we said, there are plenty of fans of the game in the country. And this is, again, and I know that JT said this back on Monday, that creating more fans doesn't necessarily change the bottom line. I don't completely agree with that. I agree with it to a stretch, though, and where I agree with it is that the more of a fan that you become, the more you look at the American landscape, and it just drives you insane because you see so many people that, again, think they're smarter than the next guy, and therefore is creating this level of conflict where not only does the most talented players get left out, but we also can't produce the best players, and then we get embarrassed on the international scale, and then it just seems like we're starting from the beginning again. But I'll start off with this one. Zach T dropped in on TikTok, and the big problem is greed in all of this. The MLS is so young; it was developed after the other sports leagues in the country figured out how to be cash cows. Kind of like, back to your point, they're trying to, in one way or another, not play copycat, but do the same thing that the other leagues are doing. Because again, the NBA is a closed league. The MLB is a closed league. The NFL is a closed league, obviously. The NHL is a closed league. You're not going to see the Mud Hens get a promotion to Major League Baseball because they played really well this year. And you're not going to see the Rockies go down to AAA, right? Because the owners would realize in that moment that the amount of money they would lose out on is astounding. It would be a lot of money. And also you would expect someone who plays in front of, I don't know, maybe 8,000 fans on a good night to compete against someone like maybe the Chicago Cubs. And it's a national landmark, Wrigley Field.
Think about that, though. Think about what you just said before you get to Zach's question or his comment.
Yep.
8,000. There are times where 8,000 people will go. The White Sox are one of the biggest felons of that. The Rockies. But the Rockies they've been to the World Series.
Yeah.
And every single Major League Baseball team, with a few exceptions, though, have been on the doorstep of a World Series. Yes, they're going to have off years. But as you said, the Tigers right now, the Tigers were on the bottom doorstep of that American League Central Division for years. For years. And who are they behind? The Guardians or the Indians at the time. And because at that time, the Indians/Guardians had a marvelous farm system. Mm-hmm. They groomed these players. They knew how to work it. Now it has shifted. Mm-hmm. Now it's Detroit that owns that.
Right.
And at some point, the Royals, they won a World Series not too long ago. The Twins have been there.
Right.
The White Sox have a World Series, for God's sake. Look how bad they've been in the past few years, but they have a World Series. Mm-hmm. And you can go through every division.
Mm-hmm.
But the MLS, probably to Zach's point, they've been around for less than 30 years. It'll be their 30-year anniversary next year.
Yeah.
And you expect just to walk in because you're Major League Soccer. You're the first professional sports team or sports league for soccer in the United States. Gravy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're complaining about attendance from soccer matches that have actually really good players saying, they're averaging 45,000.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a Major League Baseball team that's averaging 45,000.
Yeah.
There's NFL teams that don't average 45,000. There's the NBA arenas don't hold 45,000. So we're complaining about attendance.
Yeah.
For that. Because we're comparing it to the NFL. Come on, man. We're all over the place with soccer.
I think, from a business perspective, I think that's what Zach's trying to say.
Yeah.
They're trying to replicate it because it makes the teams a lot of money. And to his point, it does. It does make them a lot of money. And he finishes it off with, relegation would lose teams, again, that money. And the teams don't want to do that. And I love what he puts in. He qualifies all this at the end with saying, I say all of this to agree with you, by the way. Wanted to make sure that was clear. So appreciate you, Zach. Thanks for finding
Good job for patting yourself on the back, Nate.
Yeah.
Make sure to get that in there. Nothing like self-kudos from Zach.
But that he was just, it was
blah,
essentially.
Blah, blah. By the way, I want to close it on this. Zach loves me, by the way.
We're buddies. But he was essentially just agreeing with what I was saying, which is, again, it would, saying, oh, they have it, we should have it. Let's figure it out. I'm not a multi-million-dollar owner. Okay. I'm not someone who has that much skin in the game to where I realize I would lose out on that much money if I were to put that aside to try and create the system where pro-rel could exist. Because the other side of this too, and we'll get to some of these other ones, but I do want to address this, is the logistical side. Again, you have teams, and I know this, right? Because you and I have called games, USL League 2, where they are playing in front of, and I know like attendance and resources, but all of that matters because if you want to play at the highest level, you have to have that in this league. In the MLS, you can't play in front of just 300 people at a high school field. That's not an option. So I think people tend to forget about that side too. Yeah, it's wishful thinking, but the ultimate problem at the end of the day is, again, money. And it's so much at the top. It can oftentimes be so little in a league like the USL. Where do you find that medium ground to where you can justify something like pro-rel? That's the other really hard part of that talk.
Pro-rel is not the answer.
No,
not at all.
I think we all kind of agree on that.
I
in
think,
one way or the other.
Simply what it is taking this pyramid, right, and then just making it like that. MLS, USL Championship, USL 1, USL 2. Bam. Vertical, that's your line.
Yep.
You have your teams, but that's it. That's what it is, because USL is never going to subside to MLS. That's never going to happen because there's money invested in that too.
Yep.
But in tandem, could they make a lot more money by shrinking it down instead of having a pyramid, making it a vertical building just like an office building? You start off on the ground floor in the gift shop, you work your way to the top suite.
Yep.
And USL and MLS are the two things that can do that, because USL will become the minors and then your pro is MLS.
Yeah. So we got another one on here. I believe I'm pronouncing this correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. But Usama Shaban dropped in and said USL proposed that to the MLS, the pro-rel system. So, maybe they did bring that to the table when it came to Major League Soccer, and they said, no, USL is making it happen without them. I need everyone to understand this, okay, right now. USL cannot make it happen without the MLS in the United States. Now, if you think, okay, yeah, they can do it in their own league, that's fine. You're not going to overtake Major League Soccer. I need everyone to understand this, because I was of the mindset too at one point. I'm like, oh, what if they do it spite them, right? What if they do it to compete with them? What if they can take it over? You can't. Okay, I'm here to tell you, you cannot. And I realize that they've only been around for 29 years. That's fine. They don't quite have the history that obviously Major League Baseball has, NFL, all these other leagues. They don't. You can't do it without them. You can't do it without them. So on a minor scale, yeah, it's cool. But I see it more as a social experiment than something that's actually going to affect or change anything when it comes to the bottom line in soccer in the United States. What say you, John Natali?
It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. Because, again, we're trying to emulate something that doesn't belong to us by any means. Well, they do it in Europe. Well, guess what? The worst European teams who are on that bottom of the pro-rel in the Premier League, who have a shot to drop out, would smoke an MLS team. Plain and simple. And we're trying to find all these means or whatever, but going back to original point in our first topic, even the best players, I want to play on this team, so we better win. They don't even want to be there. Their headspace is somewhere else. It's below the border in Mexico or South America or something like that. It's across the pond in Europe. They don't want to be here. They're not fighting for anything. With MLB and NFL and NBA, that's the best in the world. That's why the best international players in NBA come here. That's why the best MLB players come here. And those are the players that get recognition. Go back to it. Our best asset that we have in American soccer is not even American.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plain and simple. Adidas, and our first topic, they have Inter Gazelles. They have Inter Miami Gazelles. Gazelles, one of the most popular shoes in the world. They have Messi Sambas, one of the most popular dress shoes and casual shoes in the world. And they've made those for one guy and a team that he's on.
Yep.
They tried to make a Kansas City Samba, and you can go on any website and it's like 50% off because nobody's buying it. Nobody.
Yep.
So this whole thing, and when we're talking about, well, the worst team should go out and the best team should come in, I'd ask, out of 100 soccer fans in this nation, 100, I bet you 50 couldn't give me the top 3 in the MLS right now. We don't even know
Galaxy.
Who's the worst. Okay, and then name the other 2.
I can't, but there's one.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Does it matter if it's Columbus? Does it matter if it's St. Louis? Does it matter if it's San Diego? We don't even know. We're not even paying attention. We're trying to pay attention to something that we really don't even care about.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it bugs me because all of our focus is you and I, soccer guys, JT formerly. But what are we watching? What are we paying attention to? We're not yelling about Manchester United. We're not yelling about Ajax.
Yeah.
We're not yelling about the Dutch national team. No, because they figured it out. They still have problems, but they figured it out. And just everything's just this whirlwind in a freaking washer machine. We throw every type of clothing in there. We don't care about mixing whites and colors and reds with whites and blues and purples and inks and everything. And then we just throw everything in the dryer and see what comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no plan, man. And it's so frustrating because you want to see it grow. I'm not wearing this hat because I got it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Right.
I want to see this team do well. I want to see soccer grow in this country. But reality is reality at the end of the day.
And when you're exposed to it and you see it at a high level, you begin again. It's easy to fall in love with the game of soccer. Like it is, and I'm kind of maybe like a little frustrated that it didn't happen earlier in my life. I mean, we played FIFA, the video game, growing up, and we did all that other stuff. But like I was never really all that heavily invested. But it is very much a beautiful game in a lot of ways because it's simple in the way that it's played. The concept.
How many kids are playing FIFA or FC 25 as they call it now? And playing Bayern Munich versus the San Jose Quakes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Nope.
No.
Right.
Nobody's doing that.
Not happening. Yep.
No.
Yep. Exactly.
And if they do that, they'll, hey, you do want to play an MLS game? All right. Who are you going to be?
Yep.
I don't know. Who's good? I'm sure that's the first thing. I don't know who's good. They go scroll through the numbers to see the team rating. And every MLS team under 80. Maybe LAFC is like cracking on 79, 80.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It just doesn't really translate in a lot of ways to me. You know, we'll leave some of these comments for some of our future shows. I do think it's an important conversation to have. I think in order for us to try to get anywhere with this, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. We have to be forward. We can't just let bygones be bygones, because if we do that, we're in a real troubled spot when it comes to all of this, because we're not in the right spot right now. And a lot of the players who are at the highest level, who have played for the national team, they all admit that. But sometimes I feel like there's also a level of insecurity too here in the U.S. You know, there's a reason why players are more obsessed with the clubs they're on, and they're more obsessed with the levels they're at. And they're less invested in what is the national team doing. You know, we see obviously the women's team has done what they've done, and now there's a standard. There's a culture of winning with that. The U.S. men's national team, it just simply doesn't exist. And I think that is, again, just a byproduct of what exactly it is that we're talking about. I'm all for soccer. I'm all for more soccer. But we got to figure out something that is actually predictable and something that we can actually see produce good results. Good players, good results, good athletes. Got a lot more in terms of the conversational stuff to tackle. We'll leave some of these for future episodes, but for now, that is episode 103 here on Inside the Game. Again, a big thank you to you guys joining us as always here on the show. I know we were gone for a week, so we're still trying to get some of those people back that were watching every day, but I wanted to say a big thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us live on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere else, live on Twitter as well. We're live. We're popular guys. You and me, John Natali. We're all over the place. But big thank you as always for you guys stopping in. Be right back at it tomorrow, 9 a.m. We're also going to make some announcements here pretty soon. We got a few return guests on Inside the Game coming up next week. We also have someone brand new on Monday. I say we talk about that, John Natali, tomorrow, because we got
a
familiar face
to the nation.
Right. You got some big guests coming up on Inside the Game. All right. Am I whop?
Oh, I can't hear you now.
You got me now?
There you go.
All right.
There we go.
See, we just got to wait a second. I think that's all it is.
Let it marinate a little bit, then throw it on the grill.
Episode 103, back at it tomorrow, 9 a.m. right here on the National Soccer Network. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
Nathan Wangler, John Natali. Peace, everybody.
You did it. Thank you. Take it easy, guys.